Welcome to this week's episode of The Savvy Author. I am a literary consultant and your host for the show today, Clara Rose. If this is your first time joining us, let me be the first to say welcome. Every week we talk about all of the moving parts and pieces that you're going to need to know to be a savvy author. All of those things that you don't even know that you need to know, you can learn them right here on the Savvy Author Show. And then, of course, if you have been with us before, welcome back, my friend. Today we are going to talk about one of the pieces. So quickly I'm just going to go over what the pieces are that we cover each week, and then I'm going to tell you the exciting thing that we're going to talk about today to give you the knowledge that you need. So what are the three phases of book creation, which is what we're here to talk about? Phase one, of course, being the brainstorm and the blueprint. This is that phase where we analyze what your book is going to be about and make sure that we're writing or creating the right book for you. The second step is to brainstorm those ideas, actually capturing them, getting them out of your head and onto paper or your computer where we can do something with them. And then finally, blueprinting, which is the outline or the structure that we're going to actually do the creation from. It's the thing that gives you that solid foundation so that your book actually works. And then phase two, of course, is create and correct. We have to start the writing process. So once we have our blueprint to follow, we start to put words onto paper. And then, of course, everybody needs an editor, so we need to do some editing. We do some self-editing, of course, and then finding an editor to actually do professional editing for us. And then formatting, because we have to get our book ready to publish. Sometimes your editor will do this for you, and sometimes you have to hire a separate professional for that. Depends on how you're actually publishing your book, of course. And then the final phase of book creation is the publish and promote. So publishing, which is just really about understanding your options for publishing, because nowadays there are more options than you could possibly even know. And then promoting. We talked about that recently, the importance of getting the word out there so that people even know that you have a book. And finally, selling, which is your ongoing plan for sales, not just when you initially launch your book. So what is it that we're going to talk about today? We're going to talk about something that everyone wants to know about, and very few people are actually talking about. Lots of people talk about promoting. Lots of people talk about the creation process. Not so much about the foundational, but selling. People just start talking about what does it really take for ongoing sales. It doesn't do you any good to create a book, get that what you have to say out to the world if no one actually continues to buy it. Of course, we're defeating our purpose if we can't get it into the hands of the reader or potential reader. So what are we going to talk about today? Drum roll, please. We're going to talk about selling. We're going to talk about that ongoing plan for sales, not necessarily around the promotion and initial launch of your book, but the ongoing strategy that it's going to take for you to sell your book. Because here's the truth. Most of us who are authors, we're not just authors. Here's a good example. So I like to talk about my book, my latest book. Won't be able to say that much longer because I have a new one coming out, but the 8 Ways to Mind Your Own Business. I don't have time every single day to be talking about selling my book to people. And then, of course, I have a book series as well. I don't have time to talk about all of the books that I have created, everything that I've authored in the past. I don't have time to talk about it every day. So how do I keep sustainable, ongoing sales happening? Well, I could pay somebody to do that for me. I could hire a publicist. I could hire somebody else to do the heavy lifting for me. Or I can do what we're going to talk about today, which is creating a strategy for ongoing things that doesn't involve me necessarily every day being on social media or being out in the world talking about my books. Right? I want to make sales, but I still have a business to run. Just like you probably have a business to run or a job that you go to every day, or perhaps, you're a mom or you're, a dad. You have other responsibilities aside from just selling your book. So we're going to talk about how we accomplish that strategically and intentionally today. All right, let's hop into all the good stuff that I have to share with you today. First of all, we talk about this more than once in this series, but where are your people? Doesn't do any good to talk about or have a strategy that includes places where your people are not at. So if your people are not on LinkedIn, you probably won't use that as one of your ongoing sales strategies. If your people are only chiropractors, you probably need to find out where chiropractors hang out so that you can market there on an ongoing basis. There's a number of different ways to do that, but let's hop into what I have for you today. Okay, intentional. You hear me say intentional a lot, but intentional sales, this is a big one, and it's what we're talking about today. If you build it, they will come does not apply to your book. Creating a written plan for ongoing sales is important, so be intentional when you find out where your potential readers might be hanging out. Your savvy tip on this is you cannot be everywhere, my friend. So pick a strategy or 3 and then just be consistent. Now, if you have been on social media often or even occasionally, and you're looking at what influencers are out there doing, they're all saying, be consistent. If you can only show up once a month on your blog, then just do that consistently. Don't show up 3 times one week and then not show up again for a month. People are going to lose interest and they're going to leave. The same is going to be true for your book promotions, your book sales. We just need to be consistent about whatever it is that you decide you're going to do for promotional purposes, for ongoing sales. Remembering, of course, that you can't be the one to do it every day. You can't be on all of the places, all of the platforms talking about your book every day. And if you did, you would likely lose followers, lose the people paying attention to you because it's just the same old thing. It's just you out there saying, buy my book, buy my book, buy my book, buy my book. Right? That is not a good strategy. Let's talk about what is a good strategy. Of course, digital has to be part of your strategy. So we're going to talk about digital strategy. Authors can no longer ignore the digital world for their book sales. You might want to, but you don't get to. Social media. Let's talk about social media a little more in depth at first. So social media, I'm talking about Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, wherever it is that you're connecting socially with others online. Now, some of my authors, when they first come to me, they're like, oh yeah, I'm not on social media at all. So that's something that we established pretty early on in our working relationship, is that you need to be on social media. It's a digital world and you don't have the option, if you're going to be successful in ongoing sales, you don't really have the option of not being a part of social media. Now, the good news is, if you are not a social media person, this is something you can outsource. You can hire somebody to manage your social media for you. It used to be quite expensive, but nowadays it's getting more and more reasonable. So you can actually hire somebody to do Facebook ads for you, to create your posts, to schedule your posts, to follow up with your post, to interact as though they're you. There's lots of help out there, lots of professionals willing to, for a reasonable price, do that for you. If, of course, you are a little bit savvy, you do spend some time on social media, you can save a buck by doing some of it yourself. Just remember, consistency is the key. The beautiful thing about paying somebody for their service is that that's how they make their money. So they're going to actually do it. So even if they're not feeling well that day or there's a family vacation, they've already made arrangements to keep it happening for you. That's just food for thought on the social media front. Next, let's talk about landing pages. So what is a landing page, you might say? This has got to be a part of your digital strategy. A landing page can be as simple as a one-page website, if you will. It's just a place where all of the information about what your book is about, who you, the author, are, maybe why you wrote the book, some of the tips, tricks, tools, tidbits, whatever they might find in your book. And then, of course, they want to know about you. Who as an author, who you are, why you did it, and then, of course, what they're going to get out of it. So a good example of things that I might put on a landing page is maybe take your table of contents and say, number one way, passion matters. So we talk about passion in this book. And then what is inspired passion? We talk about inspired passion in this book. We talk about creation. We talk about business matters. Those are the kinds of things that I would put on my landing page because I want the right people to know what's in my book so the right people will buy my book. The right people buying your book are the people that become raving fans. We always talk about that, the importance and value of having raving fans. Okay. Landing pages are as simple as a brochure online where people can find out about your book and a way to buy it. This can be a link over to Amazon when your book is on Amazon, not if, but because your book is on Amazon. Or it could be a link over to a shopping cart and you can sell it right there. Now that is not something that everyone can set up on their own. There are lots of platforms out there to help make it easy. There are also curated websites where they sell books. So find a place that works well for you. Hire it out if you need to, the creation of your landing page. It's super important that you have that piece. And then my biggest tip on that is buy the domain name for your book so that people can find you easily. Point that domain name to your landing page. That way people will find your book and buy your book. Okay, and then finally, Amazon sales. Now, love them or hate them, you have to be on Amazon. Now, if your book is being published elsewhere and not using the on-demand tool on Amazon, which so many people are doing nowadays, but there's, BookBaby and a host of other places, or perhaps a traditional publishing house is interested in picking you up. That, of course, means that they're going to do some of the sales for you. But aside from traditional publishing, you have got to be on Amazon. So if you're not publishing with their tool, KDP, then you will need to get your book to them. The truth is, they are the Mac Daddy. So here's your savvy tip about them. Love them or hate them, they are the Mac Daddy for book sales, and your book must be there. Another important thing about being on Amazon as a bookseller is that that's how you get on expanded distribution. So what is expanded distribution? That just means that you're on the list that bookstores buy from. So anybody who buys books buys them off of the expanded distribution list. If you have a coffee shop and it's got a little bookstore in it, you are likely using the expanded distribution list to source those books. If you're Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, the local Christian bookstore, all of those places are pulling from the expanded distribution list. So how do you get on the expanded distribution list? Amazon will do that for you. So if you are on Amazon, and you click the button, they will automatically do that for you. Now, that's important because your potential reader might see your book somewhere, hear the title of your book somewhere, see your landing page somewhere, but then not be able to find you again, whatever the reason is, and they go to their local bookstore and say, hey, I'm looking for this book. I know the author's name is Clara Rose, and she has a co-author. It was called 8 Ways to Mind Your Own Business. That's why a catchy title or a unique title is super important because they might remember that. It was something about being an entrepreneur. And so they can look it up in their system, which is the expanded distribution list where they can order from. They look you up in the system and say, yeah, we don't carry that perhaps in the store, but I can order a copy for you. That becomes super important part of your strategy for ongoing sales. I hear this often, but Clara, when they buy that at the bookstore, I make so much less money. That's true. It's another person with their hand in your pocket, right? When you sell it directly to the public, you get the bigger piece of the pie. When Amazon sells it, they take a piece of your pie. an expanded distribution resource sells it, they also take a piece of your pie. Yes, that's true, but that's likely a sale that you wouldn't have made otherwise, so take the royalties, my friend. Okay, so you know you need to be on Amazon. Those are the 3 things that I would say about the digital strategy. Pick 1 or 2 of these, or you could do all 3 of them, just so that it's happening outside of you 100% being responsible for making that happen. All right, let's move on to our next strategy, which is the event strategy. So digital is, of course, the online world, and events are the offline world, although you might argue that there are online events nowadays as well. Events can be a great way to sell your book consistently. This is a great way to get your book out there on a consistent basis in your local community. And of course, if you're doing an event online, it can even be global. Let's first talk about networking events. If you are a business person, you are likely networking anyway. If you're not, you ought to be, right? That's business 101. Get out there and network. When you're networking specifically for the sale of your book, where you're networking really makes a difference, really matters. Now, I'm a part of several networking groups locally because I speak to business people a lot, right? I have a book that speaks to business people, but I have an entire series that speaks to people about authorship and being authors because I help people become authors, and I help them with the creation and the publishing process for their book. So I need to be places where those people are, my potential customer for my business. Not just potential readers for my book, but people who might also want my services. Because remember, having a book is about creating a tool, and those tools are intended to organically generate leads for my business. That's why I wrote those books. And that's the entire point of them. They generate leads for me. Someone buys my book, says, oh yeah, I totally need to hire Clara to help me with this, and then they hire me, right? It's that soft introduction to somebody who might be interested, but not necessarily ready to spend the ticket amount that it takes to create their own book until they have a deeper understanding of my book or books or opportunity to educate them. And those are the tools that I've created. So you have to ask yourself, what tool have I created or am I creating, and who is it for? That's going to help you know where to network for the best success in ongoing sales for your book. Now, that one does require you to show up and be there. It's not a daily thing, but it does require you to show up and be consistent so people actually know who you are. Sometimes at networking events, I'll actually give away a copy of one of my books. Or if I have an opportunity to speak in front of one of them, I would definitely offer my books for sale at the event. If you always work with realtors, maybe going to a networking event or an educational event for realtors and speak as a guest speaker. That's a great opportunity to get in front of the right people, which leads into the next thing that I was going to talk about, which is speaking events. So speaking events can be, just like the example I just gave you, a targeted audience, or it can be a little more general audience. Now, the great thing about a book is it kind of works both ways. Having a book can get you opportunities to speak. And then once you're there speaking, it gives you an opportunity to sell some of your books. So that's a really powerful combination when you have a book and you can speak. Now, I realize public speaking is like the number one fear, which I personally don't understand because I love it. But if you struggle with that and that makes you break out in a cold sweat or want to pass out, start small. Maybe join a local group that lets you practice your speaking. Anywhere you network regularly, you're at a minimum are going to get the opportunity to stand up and say, hi, my name is, this is what I do. That's a great start. If you're shaking in your boots, start there. But work towards having opportunities to get in front of your target market, because that is going to sell books for you, I promise. All right, let's talk about community events, which is the next event strategy. So community events can be anything local where you can show up with and have a presence and have your book. Now, it could be a community event that you become a sponsor so people see your name and your face. Or it could just be as simple as I have one coming up in October where one of my brand new authors, her book is debuting at an event in the housing community she lives in. It's an over 55 community. It's very, very large, and they have an event every October. I think it's like a craft fair kind of idea, but there's tons of things to do and see and purchase. So this is a great place because she knows these people. She lives in this community. This is a great place for her to have her book launch. It's also a great place for her to make some sales right up front when her book first comes out. So that's what I mean by a community event. Find places locally where you can participate and you can get some exposure for your book. Now, that's not going to be something you could do on a daily basis, but if you could do one monthly or even quarterly, that's going to continue to have sales coming in over the long haul, which is what we're working on, correct? And then be interviewed. Now, this is a scary one for some people, but I promise you, it is not as hard or scary as you think. Be on somebody's show. Be on a radio station. Be on a television station. Be on somebody's vlog somewhere. Get yourself opportunity to be interviewed by somebody who can talk about your book. And the opportunities are everywhere. And I'm going to tell you why. And this is also your savvy tip for the day on this. Every form of media is looking for something interesting to talk about. And you, my friend, are interesting. You might think, why would anyone interview me? Well, you have a book, right? So that's one reason they might want to interview you. And if you have created an amazing book that is strategically and intentionally created so that your book is tied to your business or your ministry or your cause or your brand in some way, that's opportunity to talk about your book, the tool, and to talk about the business or why you're there, the message, whatever you're trying to get out to the world. For me, it's always about business, right? I've written books, but it's about getting business for my business. If you are a part of a ministry or you're the founder of a ministry, 501c3, you're going to want to talk about that. So write the book that will help you sell that. I promise you, super easy to be on shows. They're looking for content. Take it from somebody who does a weekly show. Every week, you have to have new, fresh content that people, your followers, your listeners, your audience, people just like you are going to want, that are going to be interested in, that they need. So I promise you, all you need to do is reach out to them. It can be as simple as reaching out to the main department and say, hey, I would love to be interviewed and talk about my new book that just came out. I promise you someone's going to call you and you will get the opportunity to be interviewed. And that is going to bring in sales. When you're talking about on the show, on the radio, wherever you are, when you're talking about your book and you're talking about your business, ministry, cause, or brand, you are going to get opportunity not just to sell your book, but not just to sell your brand, but to get other things happening like speaking opportunities. People will see you and say, this would be a great person to come to our next event. So all around, it's just a win-win. And it's free. It is not going to cost you a dime to show up and be on their show. And you're going to get free exposure, which is gold, my friend. Okay, moving right along. We're almost out of time, but I have to say this to you. Start now. Don't wait until you're ready to make your first sale or until you're ready to make ongoing sales. Creating a plan and building the infrastructure takes time. Creating it while you write the book makes good sense. Savvy tip for you, of course, is writing a quality book takes time. Use that time to plan for ongoing sales. I promise you, if you wait until you've already promoted and published your book, it is too late to have your landing page ready right now, right? Those things take time. If you're going to build it yourself, and this is your first time building something, it's really going to take time. If you're going to hire somebody, it's still going to take time because they're going to need all of that content from you. You have to provide them with the right pictures. You need the right verbiage. So you need to make sure that your credit card taking system is established. All the pieces need to be in place, and that takes a little time. So why not have that all ready to go before the day that your book actually publishes? That just makes good sense, doesn't it? Okay, we're just about out of time, so I just have to jump right in really quick and say to you, if you're interested in having some help getting your book out of your head, onto paper, and published, promoted, and then set up for ongoing sales, we have something for you. It's called the Savvy Author Mentoring Program. It's the first of its kind that gives you the full blueprint for creating a successful book, plus the education and accountability to get it done. I can't talk, but I promise you I'm a good writer and editor. So here's why that works. So you get a seasoned literary consultant and editor who guides you every step of the way. So there's no more wondering where you start or writing yourself into a corner or a half-finished manuscript that you have no idea how to finish. Then, of course, we teach you everything that you need to know about your front matter, your core content, your back matter, and all of the things you need to know about pulling a book together. And then our brainstorm and blueprint process helps you create that foundation for a successful book. We pull all that information out of your head, and then we put it into a plan or an outline, which becomes your table of contents, of course. And then step by step, you can successfully write your book as long as you follow the blueprint and actually do the writing. We educate you about your publishing options. We offer publishing options ourselves. We also will guide you through editing, formatting, and all of those pieces. And then accountability is built into this process because they are a wonderful group of writers who are working together to encourage each other. So once you put in the time, the collaborations that happen in the writing group are worth your efforts. So if you're thinking, yes, Clara, that is absolutely what I need, I'm going to invite you to jump on our waiting list. So currently the doors are closed. We only open quarterly. So if you would like to join us for a future session, you can be on the waiting list by going to clararose.com/waitlist. So clararose.com/waitlist. And I promise I'm not going to spam you. This is nothing more. I'm not going to put you on my newsletter, none of those things. All you're going to get is, hey, the next session is about to open if you're interested. You will get first right of refusal before I open it up to the rest of the world. So hop on the wait list if you think you're interested. I am out of time, my friends, but thank you so much for joining me once again. I'm going to see you right here next week.